Let me ask you something. You pull up to the lake and the wind is howling from the west. So what do? If you're like 90% of fishermen out there, you head straight for a calm, protected cove on the eastern shore, thinking you're getting out of the nasty weather, but you've just made your biggest mistake of the day. Today, we're talking about the single most misunderstood element in fishing, the wind, and how completely misreading it is the number one reason you're fishing the wrong side of the lake. Stick with me and I'll show you why running from the wind is costing you fish and how heading directly into it can lead you to the biggest feeding frenzy you've seen in years. Think I'm crazy? Let me know in the comments right now what you usually do on a windy day. I'm willing to bet we can change your mind by the end of this video.
For generations, the common wisdom has been to seek shelter. It's just human nature. We're taught to find the calmest water possible. Your grandpa probably told you that the fish are hiding from the waves, looking for peace and quiet. It makes sense, because that's what we want. We want to be comfortable. We want to be able to cast easily and hold the boat steady. We see that glassy, protected water, and our brain thinks, "Oh, perfect." But here's the hard truth. You have to stop thinking like a human who wants comfort and start thinking like a hungry predator. For a big bass or a walleye, that calm, peaceful water doesn't mean safety. It means emptiness. It means there's no food. That instinct to run from the wind is a human instinct, not a fishing instinct. And it's why so many anglers spend hours casting into what is essentially a biological desert. Let's start with the great deception, calm water. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? It's easy to fish. Your casts are perfect, your line is straight. But that's the trap. In most situations, calm water on a windy day is the least productive water in the entire lake. It's a dead zone. The reason is simple. The action isn't there, the food isn't there. Think of it like a restaurant with no customers and no food in the kitchen. It might be quiet and peaceful inside, but nobody's eating. The fish know this. They aren't spending their energy in a place where there's no chance of a meal. So the first mental shift you need to make is to stop seeing calm water as an opportunity and start seeing it for what it is, a sign that you're in the wrong place. So if the calm side is the wrong side, which side is the right one? Let's introduce a term you need to burn into your brain, the wind-blown bank. This is the shoreline that the wind is blowing directly into. It's the choppy side, it's the noisy side, it's the side where your boat control will be tested, it's the uncomfortable side, and it is, without a doubt, the side where you need to be fishing. All the magic happens on the wind-blown bank. Every element that triggers fish to feed is concentrated right there. For the rest of this video, when we talk about where the fish are, we're going to be talking about this specific area. This isn't just a random spot, it's a dinner table that Mother Nature sets for predator fish every single windy day. Now let's tackle the biggest myth of all, the idea that fish hate rough water. We think that because we would hate to be tossed around in it. But fish are not people. They are perfectly designed for their environment. A little chop on the surface doesn't bother them. In fact, they use it to their advantage. That broken, choppy surface acts as a form of camouflage. It breaks up the sunlight, making it harder for prey to see them coming from below. It also makes it harder for birds of prey like eagles or ospreys to see them from above. Rough water is a cloak of invisibility for predator fish. It makes them feel secure, bold, and ready to hunt. They don't hide from it. They move into it to gain a tactical advantage. To really understand why the windy side is so good, you need to think of the wind as an engine. It's an engine that drives a giant lake-wide delivery service. When the wind blows across the surface of the lake, it doesn't just create waves, It physically pushes the top layer of water across the entire lake. This creates a subtle but very powerful current, and everything floating in that top layer of water gets pushed along with it. This is the single most important concept to grasp. The wind is not just a nuisance, it is the force that moves the entire food chain from one side of the lake to the other. And it always moves it in one predictable direction, toward the wind-blown bank. That delivery service starts with the smallest organisms in the lake, plankton. Zooplankton and phytoplankton are the base of the entire aquatic food web. They are tiny, microscopic organisms that float in the surface layers of the water. They can't fight the current. They are completely at the mercy of the wind. So when that wind starts blowing, it pushes these trillions of tiny organisms across the lake. Imagine clouds of this microscopic food being gathered up and pushed mile after mile until it stacks up against that far shoreline. This is the silent, invisible first step of the feeding frenzy. You can't see it happen, but you absolutely have to trust that it is happening on every windy day. The next link in the chain is obvious. Who eats plankton? Baitfish, minnows, shiners, shad, alewives, the little critters that our target species love to eat. These baitfish are smart. They aren't going to waste energy swimming all over the lake looking for a scattered meal. They are going to follow the food. They will instinctively move toward the areas where the plankton is being concentrated. So as the wind pushes the plankton, massive schools of baitfish will follow that moving buffet right across the lake. They get pushed and corralled by the wind and current, ending up pinned against that same wind-blown shoreline. The dinner bell is ringing, and the guests are starting to arrive in huge numbers. And this, my friends, is where the magic happens. The buffet line is now officially open. You have a massive concentration of the entire lake's supply of plankton, which has attracted a massive concentration of the lake's baitfish, all stacked up along one specific shoreline. What do you think the bass, walleye, pike and other predators are going to do? They aren't dumb. They're not going to sit on the calm side of the lake, starving. They are going to move to where the food is. They will position themselves on that windy bank, often in very shallow water, and just wait for that conveyor belt of food to bring them an easy meal. This is why you can catch monster fish in just 2 or 3 feet of water on a windy day. They've come to the feast. Here's a great way to visualize it. Think of one of those sushi restaurants with a conveyor belt that brings the food right to you. The wind is the motor that runs that conveyor belt. The plankton and baitfish are the plates of sushi traveling along it. The predator fish are the customers sitting at the bar, just waiting for the right plate to come by so they can grab it. Now, would you go to that restaurant and sit in a quiet corner booth, far away from the conveyor belt, hoping a waiter might eventually bring you something? Of course not. You'd sit right where the action is. You need to do the same thing on the lake. Fish the conveyor belt. Fish the windy side. There's another huge factor at play here, and that's water temperature. The sun warms the top few feet of the lake's surface. This layer of warmer water is also what gets pushed by the wind. In the spring and fall, when the main lake is still cold, this can be a game changer. A steady wind can push water that is 2, 3, or even 5 degrees warmer against the wind-blown bank. This slight temperature increase can dramatically increase the metabolism and activity level of both baitfish and predator fish. It's like a shot of energy for the entire ecosystem on that one shoreline. So not only is the food there, but the conditions are also perfect to make the fish more active and aggressive. The wind does more than just push things around. It actively stirs the pot and creates new feeding opportunities. The constant pounding of waves against the shoreline churns up the bottom in shallow areas. This dislodges all sorts of food items that are normally hidden. Crayfish get washed out from under rocks. Nymphs and other insect larvae get stirred up from the sediment. All of this extra food gets thrown into the water column, adding even more items to the buffet. It creates a chaotic, food-rich environment where predators can feast. That murky, churned-up water might look messy to you, but to a fish, it looks like a pantry that just had its doors thrown wide open. Let's talk about sound and fury. That windy shoreline is a noisy, chaotic place. The sound of waves crashing, the water churning. It's a lot of commotion, and just like the choppy surface, this noise acts as excellent camouflage for predator fish. It masks the sounds they make as they move in to attack their prey. In calm, clear water, a predator has to be much more stealthy. Any little movement or sound can spook the baitfish, but in that noisy, windy environment, they can be much more aggressive. They can rush in and attack with less fear of being detected. This is why strikes on a windy bank are often so violent. The fish are confident and committed. Here's a bit of science for you: oxygen. All that wave action does something crucial to the water. It infuses it with oxygen. The constant crashing and churning of the surface traps air and dissolves oxygen into the water. Fish, like us, need oxygen to be active. More oxygen means a higher metabolism and more energy. Highly oxygenated water is like a breath of fresh air that invigorates fish and puts them in the mood to feed. So while the calm, stagnant cove on the other side of the lake might be getting depleted of oxygen, the windy side is getting a constant, fresh supply. You have more food, better cover, and more energetic fish all in one place. Okay, so you're convinced. You've headed to the windy side of the lake. Now what? You can't just start casting anywhere. You still need to target specific pieces of structure. The best spots are going to be anything that intercepts that wind-driven current. Look for long tapering points that stick way out into the lake. Find inside turns or bends in the shoreline. A submerged rock pile or a weed edge on the windy side is a gold mine. These features act as an ambush point. The fish will sit just off to the side of the main current, waiting for the wind to deliver baitfish right to their doorstep. They are using the structure as a current break and a place to hide. Let's get a little more advanced and talk about the current seam. When the wind pushes water against the bank, it creates a subtle current that flows along that shoreline. The fastest water will be right out in the open, and the slowest water will be right up against the bank or behind a piece of structure. In between those two is a seam or an edge. This is a prime holding spot for predator fish. They can sit in the slower water of the seam and expend very little energy, while watching the faster water right next to them for any baitfish that gets swept by. Casting your lure so that it travels right along this invisible edge is one of the most effective ways to catch fish on a windy bank. Let's paint a picture. You're on the lake, and a 15-mile-per-hour wind is blowing right into a long, rocky point. You need to use your boat control to stay just off the point, casting directly into the wind or slightly across it. Let your lure land right up in the shallowest water where the waves are crashing on the rocks. The fish will be surprisingly shallow, waiting for those dislodged crayfish and pinned baitfish. You work your lure back out from the shallow water to the deeper water. The fish will be facing into the current, waiting. Your lure coming towards them looks like a natural meal. This is a high percentage pattern that works on almost any lake in the country. Your lure selection needs to match the conditions. A windy day is not the time for subtle, finesse presentations. You need baits that can be seen and heard in the churned-up, noisy water. This is prime time for moving baits. Think spinnerbaits with big blades that create a lot of flash and vibration, lipless crankbaits that you can burn through the water, square-bill crankbaits that deflect off rocks and cover. A chatterbait is an absolute killer in the wind. These baits call fish in from a distance. You need something that stands out from the chaos, so don't be afraid to use bigger, louder, and more obnoxious lures than you normally would. As the waves churn up the bottom, you'll often see a distinct mud line form. This is the visible edge where the dirty, stirred-up water meets the clearer water of the main lake. You absolutely have to fish this edge. For predator fish, this mud line is a perfect ambush wall. They can hide in the dirty water, completely unseen, and watch the clear water for any unsuspecting baitfish that swim by. It's the ultimate advantage. Cast your lure into the clear water and bring it right past the edge of the muddy water. The strikes will be sudden and violent. Never, ever ignore a good mud line on a windy day. Now, is there ever a time to fish the calm side? Yes, but it's the exception, not the rule. The most common exception is during a severe cold front. After the front passes, you often get those bright bluebird skies and a lingering wind. During these high-pressure conditions, fish can become very inactive. They might pull off the windy banks and tuck into calmer, sheltered areas to recover. Also, if the wind is so strong that it becomes dangerous, we're talking huge, white-capping waves, and then safety comes first. No fish is worth risking your life. But for 95% of normal windy days, the windy bank is the place to be. Let's put this all together into a new pre-fishing checklist for you. Before you even hook up the boat, you need to check the weather forecast. Don't just look at the temperature, look at the wind speed and, most importantly, the wind direction. Pull up a map of the lake, identify which shorelines, points, and coves are going to get hit directly by that wind. Those are your primary targets. Your first 5 fishing spots should all be on the windblown side of the lake. Stop starting your day in that comfortable, protected cove by the boat ramp. Make a plan to head straight into the wind and start where the fish are actively feeding. Ultimately, this is about a fundamental mindset shift. It's about choosing to be a little uncomfortable in order to be a lot more successful. It means learning better boat control. It means getting a little wet from the spray sometimes. It means fighting the wind on your casts, but the reward is immense. You will start catching fish on days when everyone else is getting skunked. You'll understand the lake on a deeper level. You'll be using nature's own patterns to your advantage instead of fighting against them. So stop thinking like a person seeking shelter and start thinking like a predator using the elements to hunt. Embrace the wind. It's not your enemy, it's your #1 guide. So let's wrap this up. The biggest takeaway, the real aha moment, is that the rough, choppy, uncomfortable water that most of us have been avoiding our entire lives is actually our best friend. It's a giant, flashing neon sign that says the buffet is open and fish are eating here. The wind is the engine that concentrates the entire food chain from the smallest plankton to the biggest baitfish and stacks them up on one side of the lake. By simply learning to read the wind and fishing the correct shoreline, you can eliminate 90% of the dead water before you even make your first cast. This isn't just one small tip, it's a core strategy that can completely change your approach to fishing. Thank you so much for watching. If this video blew your mind or confirmed something you've suspected for years, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out.
And make sure you subscribe, because we're just getting started breaking down all the old rules that are costing you fish. Now I have to ask you, after hearing all this, are you going to tough it out on the windy side on your next trip? Let me know your honest answer in the comments below.